What if I told you that one country could hand you ancient ruins older than Rome, beaches that make the Mediterranean look like it's trying too hard, a city that literally sits on two continents at once, and food so deeply layered with history and flavor that chefs across the world have spent entire careers trying to decode it, and that you could experience all of it for a fraction of what you'd spend in France, Italy, or Greece? That's not a pitch. That's just Turkey. Most people who haven't been to Turkey think they know what it is. They picture Istanbul, maybe a hot air balloon over some rocky landscape. And that's about where the mental image stops. But the people who've actually been, they come back changed. They come back with a list of places they didn't get to, already planning the return trip. Because Turkey isn't a destination you check off. It's a destination that gets under your skin. In this video, we're breaking down the 15 best places to visit in Turkey for 2026. And this isn't a rewild list of the same 5 tourist stops you've already seen on every other travel channel. We're going deep, covering the icons that earned their reputation and still managed to exceed every expectation. The hidden towns that most travel guides have completely abandoned. And the coastal experiences that belong on a short list of the finest things you can do as a traveler anywhere on Earth. One destination on this list surprises almost every viewer, and I promise you, it is not the one you're thinking of. Stay until the end, because the number one pick is chosen for a very specific reason. Not just beauty, not just history, but a combination of both that simply does not exist anywhere else on this planet. Welcome to Destination Check. If you're new here, we build travel guides for people who take their adventures seriously. Hit that like button, subscribe, and let's get into it. But here's what most people miss. Directly above those terraces sits Hierapolis, an ancient Greco-Roman spa city. The ancients built here specifically because of those same thermal waters. The ruins of the city, its theater, its necropolis, its temple, are extraordinarily well preserved. Almost every visitor spends so much time at the pools that they barely explore what's above them. Don't make that mistake. Pamukkale combined with Hierapolis is one of the most complete and layered travel experiences in all of Turkey. Number 13 is Antalya, and before you write it off as just another resort town, hear this out. Yes, Antalya is a major tourism hub. Yes, it has resorts. But the old city, Kaleci, is a completely different story. Ancient Roman harbor walls wrap around a neighborhood of narrow cobblestone streets, Ottoman mansions, Byzantine ruins, and a harbor full of wooden boats that has been in use for over 2,000 years. The Hadrian's Gate, built to honor the Roman emperor's visit in 130 AD, still stands at the entrance to the old town, in remarkable condition. The coastline stretching out in both directions, turquoise water against dramatic cliffs, gives you an immediate sense of why this region has been drawing people for centuries. Antalya rewards the traveler who looks past the resort strip. Number 12 is Bursa, and this one matters more than most people realize. Before Istanbul, before Constantinople, Bursa was the first capital of the Ottoman Empire. This is where it all began. Because Western tourists tend to skip it in favor of better-known stops, Bursa has a quality that is increasingly rare in Turkish tourism. It feels genuinely local. The Grand Mosque, the Ulu Cami, is one of the finest examples of early Ottoman architecture in existence. It has 20 domes, a massive interior, and a calligraphy tradition that covers every inch of its walls. The covered bazaars here are among the most authentic in the country. The street food, particularly the Iskender kebab, which was invented here, is the kind of thing that travel writers reach for superlatives to describe and still fall short. Bursa is the Ottoman Empire's origin story, told in stone, food, and living culture. Number 11 is Ankara, Turkey's capital, and the travel community has done it a genuine disservice by consistently labeling it as skippable. It is not. Ankara is a modern, functioning capital city with one attraction that alone justifies the visit: the Museum of Anatolian Civilizations. Housed in a restored 15th century Ottoman building, this museum holds one of the most important collections of ancient artifacts on Earth. Hittite, Phrygian, Assyrian, Neolithic, The depth of human history stored inside this single building is staggering. Add the Anıtkabir, the mausoleum of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, which sits on a hilltop above the city with a presence and gravitas unlike almost any monument in Europe. Ankara begins to reveal itself as a city that asks you to take it seriously. It deserves that. Now we move into the part of this list where Turkey starts to get truly unexpected. Number 10 takes us north to a place most international travelers have never heard of, Safranbolu. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, a small Ottoman town in northern Turkey. The old quarter has been so perfectly preserved that walking its streets is a genuinely disorienting experience in the best possible way. The houses, timber-framed, multi-storied, with overhanging upper floors and wooden latticework, are not reconstructions or restorations placed there for tourism. They are original. People live in them. Safranbolu looks the way hundreds of Ottoman towns across Anatolia once looked before modernization changed everything. The fact that this one survived more or less intact is something close to a miracle. If you have any interest in Ottoman domestic architecture or simply in the feeling of stepping into another century without the crowds or the commercialization, Safranbolu is one of Turkey's greatest gifts. Number 9 is Alakata, on the Aegean coast of Turkey, and it wears its identity with a confidence that few small towns anywhere in the world can match. Once a Greek trading town, abandoned after the population exchanges of the early 20th century, and slowly reimagined over recent decades as one of Turkey's most stylish destinations. Alakata has built a reputation for exactly the kind of travel experience that is genuinely hard to find anymore. The stone buildings with their purple bougainvillea, the boutique hotels tucked into former Greek houses, the restaurant scene that takes Aegean ingredients seriously in ways that would hold up in any major European city. All of it adds up to something that feels curated, but not artificial. The local cuisine alone, fresh seafood, wild herbs, olive oil from trees that have been producing for generations, is worth the trip. In 2026, Alakata is one of the finest small towns on the Mediterranean coast of anywhere. Number 8 is Mardin, and this is the destination that tends to stop people mid-sentence when they first see it. Mardin sits on a limestone hilltop in southeastern Turkey, overlooking the Mesopotamian plains stretching all the way to the Syrian border. And it is one of the most visually dramatic cities in the entire region. The city is built from honey-colored stone that changes with the light, golden in the morning, almost amber at dusk. And its architecture is a physical record of every civilization that passed through. Aramaic Christians, Arabs, Kurds, Ottomans, Assyrians. The churches here are ancient. The mosques are spectacular. The bazaars still operate the way they have for centuries. And the view from the old city down over those plains at sunset is the kind of view that makes you understand why human beings have been fighting over this land since the beginning of recorded history. Number 7 is Bodrum, and here is where we correct the record. Bodrum has a reputation as a party destination, as a place for summer clubs and yacht shows and celebrity sightings. And yes, that version of Bodrum exists. But Bodrum was also one of the most important cities of the ancient world. The mausoleum of Halicarnassus, one of the original 7 wonders of the ancient world, was built here. The castle of St. Peter, constructed by the Knights of St. John in the 15th century using stones from that very mausoleum, rises over the harbor in a way that is still breathtaking today. The museum inside that castle, the Bodrum Museum of Underwater Archaeology, houses one of the finest collections of ancient shipwreck artifacts in existence. Bodrum, in other words, rewards curiosity far beyond its summer reputation. Number 6 sends us somewhere most Turkey itineraries never go, north to Trabzon and the Black Sea coast. This is a completely different Turkey. Lush, green, dramatic, the mountains here drop almost directly into the sea, and the landscape feels more like the Caucasus than the Mediterranean. The Sumala Monastery, carved into a cliff face at nearly 4,000 feet altitude above a river gorge, is one of the most extraordinary religious sites in the entire Christian world. Built in the 4th century and in continuous use for over 1,000 years, the monastery seems to grow directly out of the rock face. Getting there, hiking up through the forest, and arriving at something that human hands actually built in this location, That experience resets your understanding of what determination looks like. The Black Sea coast is the Turkey that challenges every assumption you came in with. Number 5 is Mount Nemrut in southeastern Turkey. This one is for the traveler who is willing to do something slightly inconvenient in exchange for something completely unforgettable. At nearly 7,000 feet of altitude on the summit of a remote mountain, there are enormous stone heads. Zeus, Apollo, Tyche, Heracles, and the king who commissioned them, Antiochus I. They sit in the rubble of collapsed statues that once stood 15 feet tall. The king had this funerary monument built to honor both the gods and himself in the 1st century BC. He declared himself their equal, and then placed these colossal statues facing east and west so they would catch the first and last light of every day. The sunrise experience here, arriving in the dark, climbing in the cold, and watching the light slowly find those ancient stone faces one by one, is one of the most otherworldly moments available to any traveler on Earth in 2026. It is remote, it is not easy, and it is completely worth it. Number 4 is Göreme, the heart of Cappadocia. This is where we introduce the landscape, but we're saving the full weight of it for the top 3. What you need to know here is that Cappadocia is not like anything else. The fairy chimneys, the volcanic rock formations, the valleys carved over millions of years into shapes that no natural process seems to have the right to produce. All of it creates a landscape that genuinely challenges the brain's ability to process what it's looking at. Göreme is the village at the center of this region, surrounded by cave dwellings, rock-cut churches, and underground cities that go down 8 levels below the surface. But we'll come back to Cappadocia because it didn't land at number 1, and the reason why is worth explaining. We are now in the top 3. These are not just the best places in Turkey. These are among the finest travel experiences available anywhere on the planet. At number 3, we return to Cappadocia for the full picture. The hot air balloon experience at sunrise over the fairy chimneys of Göreme is, without any exaggeration, one of the most beautiful things a human being can witness from the air. Hundreds of balloons rise in the early morning light over a landscape that looks like it belongs on another planet. The silence up there, broken only by the occasional burst of the burner, gives the whole experience a quality that no photograph has ever fully captured. Below ground, the underground cities of Derinkuyu and Pamukkale are entire civilizations carved into volcanic rock. These cities housed tens of thousands of people with ventilation systems, wells, churches, kitchens, and stables, all hidden beneath the surface. The cave hotels of the region, many of them genuinely luxurious, let you sleep inside that landscape. Cappadocia belongs at the top of any Turkey list, and the only reason it isn't number 1 is that one destination on this list carries a weight that Cappadocia, for all its wonder, simply cannot match. At number 2 is something that isn't quite a single destination. It's an experience. The turquoise coast, stretching from Oludeniz down through Kaş and beyond, is already one of the most beautiful stretches of coastline in the Mediterranean world. The water is a blue so vivid it looks digitally enhanced in every photograph. The mountains behind it, often still carrying snow at their peaks while the beaches below bake in the sun, create a visual contrast so dramatic that it becomes almost expected and still never less than stunning. But the turquoise coast's greatest offering is not the towns along it. It's the blue voyage. The tradition of renting a traditional wooden gullet boat, crude, stocked, unhurried, and sailing from bay to bay. From ancient ruins half submerged in the water to hidden coves accessible only from the sea, stopping whenever the mood dictates, anchoring at night under skies with no light pollution. The sunken city of Kakova, the ruins of Patara, the sea caves near Kaş, all of it experienced not from a tour bus or a crowded beach, but from the water at your own pace. The Blue Voyage is one of the most freeing travel experiences that 2026 has to offer. And it belongs in a very small conversation about the finest ways to spend a week. And at number 1, Istanbul. There are cities on this earth that are beautiful. There are cities that are historic. There are cities that are alive with energy and food and culture and noise and the feeling that everything important is happening right here, right now. And then there's Istanbul, which is all of those things simultaneously, at a scale and a depth that no other city on the planet quite manages. This is the only city in the world that sits on two continents. The Bosphorus Strait, narrow enough in places to feel almost intimate, divides Europe from Asia, and Istanbul spreads across both sides, with complete indifference to that fact. You can take a ferry from Europe to Asia in 20 minutes, eat breakfast in one and dinner in the other, and think about what that means for a city's identity and history and self-understanding. The Hagia Sophia was built in 537 AD as a Christian cathedral, became the most important mosque in the Islamic world for 500 years after the Ottoman conquest of Constantinople in 1453. It was converted to a museum for most of the 20th century and is now a mosque once more. Still standing, still overwhelming, still containing some of the finest Byzantine mosaics on earth, alongside the grandeur of Ottoman calligraphy, both traditions present simultaneously in the same space. That is not a building. That is the physical record of civilizational change. The Blue Mosque, 6 minarets, 20,000 Iznik tiles, a domed interior so large and so blue that it feels less like a building and more like a sky, stands 200 meters from the Hagia Sophia in Sultanahmet Square. The ancient hippodrome once held chariot races for the citizens of the Roman Empire. The Topkapi Palace, where the Ottoman sultans ruled the world for nearly 400 years, sits on a promontory above the Bosphorus. With a view that explains, immediately and without the need for further argument, why every empire that ever held this city refused to surrender it without a catastrophic fight. And then there's everything else. The Grand Bazaar, one of the oldest and largest covered markets in the world, with over 4,000 shops and a geography so complex that getting lost in it is considered part of the experience. The Spice Bazaar, where the smell alone is worth a flight across a continent. The Bosphorus itself, best understood from the water, a ferry ride along its length at dusk. Watching the mosques and palaces and Ottoman waterfront mansions and modern bridges all slide past in a panorama that should not be real. The food in Istanbul is a conversation unto itself. The fish sandwiches from the boats near the Galata Bridge. The meyhane taverns of Beyoğlu, where small plates of meze keep arriving alongside rakı until the night loses track of itself. The baklava from a pastry shop in Karaköy. The lahmacun from a street counter that has no menu and no need for one. Istanbul eats like a city that has been feeding people for 2,500 years, which is exactly what it has been doing. In 2026, Istanbul sits at a rare intersection for the traveler. Still underpriced relative to its quality and its history when compared to the great cities of Western Europe. Still navigable before tourism infrastructure tips into the kind of overcrowding that has started to hollow out places like Venice and Amsterdam. Still a city that feels genuinely, organically itself. Not curated for visitors, not performing a version of its identity for cameras, but simply existing with the confidence of a place that has been one of the world's great cities since long before the concept of tourism existed. There is no perfect country, but Turkey in 2026 comes as close as any destination on Earth to offering everything. Ancient civilizations, living culture, incomparable food, natural landscapes that defy description. A coastline that belongs in a completely different league, and a city at the top of this list that doesn't just compete with the greatest cities in the world. It stands apart from them entirely. The window to experience Turkey before it becomes the most crowded destination on the Mediterranean may be shorter than anyone currently appreciates. The people who go in 2026 are going at exactly the right time. That's the list. 15 places, 1 country, and a case for why Turkey belongs at the very top of your 2026 travel plans. If you've been to Turkey, drop your favorite destination in the comments. Or tell us which one on this list you're planning to visit first. We read every comment, and we build future videos based on where you want to go. If this video helped you, the best thing you can do is hit the like button. It helps this channel reach more travelers who are looking for exactly this kind of content. And if you're not subscribed to Destination Check yet, now is a good time. We're building the kind of travel guides that treat your time and your adventures with the seriousness they deserve. We'll see you in the next one.